Hello and welcome to IndiePod, an indie games podcast, your weekly source for all the indie games news you need to know. This week, we are bringing you a whopping, just a massive 3 news stories before, of course, we hop in to News Cram. God bless the crowd and your listener questions. But before we do that, I would like to introduce myself, Vaughn, alongside my illustrious co-host, the biggest of average, Josh Boys. How you doing today, Big Josh Boy?
I'm doing well. I like how you kept the horse thing. People who are listening
just a little bit, yeah, like
don't know what that means.
Yeah, yeah.
But
it's gonna be the pause thing all over again.
That's
like I might keep this in for the YouTube audience, and then we'll have Sam once again in the Discord being like, "What was the pause?"
It's so funny to me too, because when we do things like this, I love our listeners and our fan base that are in the Discord, because they'll comment about the episode and they'll say things. And they'll do things like that where he'll be like, "What is the pause?" And I recorded it a few days ago, and I look at it and I'm like, "I don't fucking know."
You totally forget. Yeah,
I have no idea what, like, anything that I say on this podcast is immediately out of my brain.
100%.
Once we are done with the podcast.
5 seconds after we're done, I'm just like, what? Like, the only thing I retain is maybe some of the news stories, but anything that we just did off the cuff, like dumb shit, totally forget. Like, I barely remember the Taylor Swift's Dirty Little Secret thing. Like, I barely fucking remember it.
I love it. But yeah, I never think about it. But my wife will ask me something. She'll be like, "How's the podcast?" And I'll be like, "It was good." She's like, "Oh, what did you talk about?" And I'll be like, "I don't know."
Fucking indie games, I guess.
Indie games,
probably.
You know? What are you going to fucking say? I don't know.
I mean, what's so funny is that, like, I basically use the excuse for me not having a very good memory for anything else in my life, because I just have to fill it up with all this extra bullshit for, like, podcasting and just the dumb shit that I enjoy outside of it. But then when you really think about it, it's like, but you don't remember what you talk about on the podcast. So what is my memory actually being utilized for? I don't know. I just fucking suck. Maybe that's
so
it.
Selective.
Yeah,
like I remember song lyrics. Like, I don't know why. Stuff from back when I was a kid. I could still remember those songs and like sing along, and I'll just be like, why is this still somewhere deep in my memory?
Yeah, for me, I can't remember most of my childhood, which I think is hilarious. Like, I personally think it's funny. But from an outside perspective, I can understand how it actually be kind of concerning. With it just like, but why can't you? And I'm just like, I mean, it's probably something fucked up happened. Let's be real. It's probably something messed up, but whatever.
Block that out of existence.
Yeah, we'll move past it. I will, you know what? Instead, I will get hypnotized when I'm fucking 35 and turns out that I'm like a fucking murderer or something, just deep down, because all of these blocked memories. But until then,
not.
We'll wait. You know what I noticed today, though? And this has to be like, it's just, I got to talk about it, because Big Josh Boy's got this amazing haircut. He's looking sexy. He's looking fucking suave as shit. And so, you know what I noticed today? I was like trimming my beard. My wife's kind of annoyed about it. But what I do is I like trim my beard and I just leave my mustache long, because for some reason I just like it. It's like the closest I can get to just having a mustache, because my wife won't let me.
Dude, that's so funny. I keep trying to let my wife. I'm always like, what if I just had a mustache? You know, because it's one of those things where I'm always like, I want to try these new things. Like, I want to have just a mustache, or I want to just grow my hair like really long in one area and just have like a long swoosh thing. And I'm always like, you know, what if I did that? She's always like, no. She's like, don't change anything ever. I'm like, come on, man. Like, this is of all the times for her to let me do something like this, the pandemic is the time to let me do that, because no one can see me. I mean, granted, but she
has to fucking look at you, dude. I don't think it's other people. Like Morgan, I've brought up the idea of me just having a mustache, and she says, as long as I'm comfortable with not having sex until the rest of my facial hair grows back. And I'm like, that might be a risk I'm willing to take, you know? Like, to have a fucking mustache.
You know. Yeah, I mean, you got so many years left to live. You might as well do it now while you could still have a nice looking mustache on your face. You could have sex forever. You're married to her, you know?
Yeah, fucking, I'm 80 years old, and on my bucket list is to just grow a mustache. Like, I'm fucking terminally ill, and I'm like, I just want to have a mustache. I want to look like Magnum PI for like a little bit. I'm not going to look as sexy. I get it. I'll look like a pedophile. But like, dude, I will have a mustache for like a day or two. Like, it would be great. But that's not even what I realized, okay? So I'm like trimming. I'm trimming my beard and everything. And I like trim this side. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, I always get weird when you get up to like this far on your shit because I'm afraid I'm going to just start shaving the sides of my head.
Yeah.
And so I'm like trimming and everything, and I like stopped for a second, and I was like, wait, did I shave the top of my head? I was like, that looks real close. And I was like, no, I didn't. Okay, cool. You're all good. And I'm like, just doing it. And then I come to the other side, and I was just like, wait, did I shave the other side of my head? Because I looked at this side. No, I think the person who just cut my hair entirely missed this section of my fucking head. Because I just noticed, like, today, I was like, this is longer. This side is longer than this side. And I just noticed it today because I've had like a longer beard the whole time. And I was just like, and I thought about it for a second. I was like, what if I did just like fucking shave the side of my head? And then watch me have gotten it wrong. And it was like some sort of optical illusion. And then it's like, now this side's like, longer. And it's fucking a vicious cycle. And I'm just like, fuck it. I shaved my head entirely.
Yeah. Just go bald, baby.
I mean,
that's kind of I got pretty close. I'm like real close to the edge. I'm at that point where you shave your head and you could feel the wind in between your hair and it like scalp. Tingles. And it's like, ooh, what is this?
You're like, I like the way it feels.
I like the way it feels. Yeah, dude, it's good. That's why I cut it like this. But no,
and I mean, you're still a cute boy. You don't even see the thing about it is like you can shave your head, still be a cute boy. Me, if I shave my head, guaranteed look like a neo-Nazi. I will 100% look like a white supremacist. Like, I wear hats. But if I ever took off the hat, it would just be, like, immediately, like... I would look dangerous. Yeah. I would look like I got a bone to pick. You know what I mean? Like, So I'm afraid of it. But you know what? Eventually, like, I refuse to be one of those guys who, like... has like I mean I've got a bald spot obviously, but because I'm just losing my hair like a normal person, but I refuse to be that person who has like basically like, you know, monks, how they would shave just like 90% of their fucking head but leave that stupid circle, and you're just like why would you fucking do that to yourself? Like, not making fun of your religion, just the haircut, and like there are people that just naturally have that because they're going bald, but they refuse to shave the rest of their head. And I'm just like, no, fucking shave your head. You look weird.
My wife too. We started talking about that because it is so close. Because I ended up using this and it was much shorter than we really intended. But I was just like, fuck it. Because I cut my own hair and then I just had my wife clean up the sides and shit, like the parts that I can't see in the back.
It'll grow back if you don't like it.
Well, that's the thing too, is like it grows back. Like my hair grows so fast, so I never really care about shaving it down to here because in like the next couple of weeks it'll be back to normal, if even that.
Man, brag more about having awesome hair, please.
That's what I'm saying. And I mean, yes and no. There's always just too much hair, like too much.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I get it.
But like I was saying, she can see like some of the intricacies, I'll say, on my head, like moles and shit, like normal things that are kind of like, you know, like here and whatnot. Yeah. And so she's looking at me while we're sitting down and she's like, I don't think you should go bald. I'm like, I don't think so either, but I don't get to say whether or not that happens.
Yeah, I'm actually, like, I'm so terrified of going bald because I'll watch a TV show and, like, Jason Statham, he's a cute boy. But when you, like, look at him for a little too long, you're just like, I'm starting to see the weird creases in your head. Yeah. Like, you start to see all of it and you're just like, there's something weird about your head.
Yeah, and it's like, there's so few people that going full bald is like, yeah, it looks good. Like, there's people where you're like, yeah, okay, you look good with that. But a lot of people just look fucking like aliens. And you're like, yeah, your head's shaped weird. Like, put something on.
See, that's why I've made this pact with myself and with others, which is weird because my wife has gone out of her way to try to gaslight me into believing that I don't have a bald spot. Like, I've said it before, and she's been like, nah, it doesn't exist. And I'm like, I know it's there. I look. We have mirrors. I can see the back of my fucking head, but like I've made this thing where I'm just like, you know what? If I have a big enough bald spot that is like a definite bald spot, I'm going to shave my head, but I'm going to get fucking yoked. Like I'm going to take all of the pride that I had in my hair and then just get really fucking stacked. I'm going to overcompensate. I'm not going to skip leg day though, you know what I mean? Because I've already got that fat ass, got to have those chunky thighs, got to have that sweet thigh game, you know?
I'm
wait.
Like, I can't
I'm not
wait.
trying to get the bitches, but like, you know,
hell
like
yeah, dude.
If
we're gonna get Indie Pod in the gym. Yeah, dude, come on. Let's fucking. Oh man, if only you weren't in fucking Idaho.
Dude, you know what's weird?
What?
I actually I just remembered what I was actually gonna bring up before the side of my fucking head isn't actually the same. You know,
are you saying that these
length.
stories are on the spot? And that we don't plan anything?
Yeah, totally. No, there was something I was going to bring up, and it's like I totally forgot about it. On my way home last night, I thought about it, and I was like, dude, you know what? I think I could be a thought. Like, that sounds bad, but, like, I think I could be a Twitch thought. Here's my reasoning, though. I got me a fat ass. Like, and if you just didn't know the rest of me... Like if I just like, you know, just filmed the bottom half of me. Would it just be like
an ass cam and then you playing games?
It'd just be an ass cam. Yeah, I think I could be a thought. Like I got a good booty and like I even like my booty. So I think like, I mean, guaranteed I'd lose a couple subs the second that, you know, I break character or something and they see, I don't know, my balls or like something else. Like 100% I would lose a sub or two, but I can almost guarantee you that I feel like I could succeed off my ass alone. Like and I've thought about it. I was just like, I was walking into my apartment last night and I was like, I wonder how much money I can make off this booty. Like, I wonder how much I could make off of it. Like maybe a lot, maybe. Like, I don't know. And Chase has told me before that, like, essentially I should make an OnlyFans. In a sense, like, I should do that. And I've been like, no, nobody's going to pay to see me. But, dude, if I get yoked and just got this fat ass, whew.
I don't know. Yeah.
I think I could do it. I think I could do it. I think I could make some money. But speaking
sounds to me like you need to go bald then.
I know, right? I need to just, like, I need more of my hair to fall out. So I have, like, basically depression because of it. And then it forces me into the gym. Or at least, I don't know, by Ring Fit Adventure or something. Like, maybe I can get, like, fucking Saitama yoked or something. And I just need to do, like, 100 push-ups a day or something.
Yeah, maybe.
But, I don't know. Anyway. Speaking about making the cash, let's hop in to our housekeeping before, of course, we talk about the games we've been playing. Housekeeping for this week includes the Nakul Verma developer interview. This is the developer behind In My Shadow, going up, of course, on Wednesday, as our developer interviews always do. That is 1 day after for patrons, 2 days before for plebes. Make sure to check it out. The developer interviews are always awesome. Make sure to check out all of the others as well. Last week we put up the Whoopo developer interview, which I know Josh was super excited about. Very excited. Make sure to check them out every week. They're fucking sweet. I'm excited. Yeah. Then, of course, check out the IndiePod store over on Teespring /store/indie/pod/ whatever, dude. It's just the IndiePod store on Teespring. Check our bio, our pinned tweet on Twitter. It's got a link to the Teespring where you can buy some cool shirts and you can also get some stickers for right now because I have accidentally locked our PayPal. And just in case people didn't know, that's why we haven't done anything, because I have accidentally locked our PayPal. It's 100% my fault. Well, I guess my phone just like died on itself, so it's kind of its fault. Like, if I'm going to pass the blame to anything, I'm going to blame technology. But please check out our YouTube channel. It is just IndiePod over on YouTube. Check it out. Watch these videos. Watch this podcast be recorded on video, and you get to see all the fun stuff that we cut out for everybody else, or that they just don't get to see because it's a visual gag, and then they like pop into our Discord and freak out about it. So please check these out over on YouTube. Leave us reviews on any sort of listening platform that you can do so, specifically iTunes, because supposedly it helps us reach a wider audience and helps with SEO. Well, yeah. No, isn't it SEO? Search engine
SEO.
optimization.
Yep.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, SEO. I was like, hold up, wait. SOE, but that's Sony Online Entertainment. So it's just like I've got it wrong. And then lastly, thank you so much to all of our patrons: Will C, Mixamatosis, aka Mix, Zach Durham, Chase Hopkins, Philip Renshaw, the Wombat Emperor of Australia, Mr. Chris Penwell. He's always drinking tea, dude. Always drinking tea. Josh Nichols, aka Active Josh, and Sam Fillion from Canada. Thank you all so much for being patrons. You're all so amazing. One day I will kiss you on the mouth. I mean, Phil, bruh, if I wasn't afraid I would get attacked by your palace guards, I would come kiss you on the mouth right now. And also, congratulations. I just have to say it. Congratulations to Mr. Philip Renshaw, the Wombat Emperor of Australia. He has now engaged to have an empress. I think that is what it's called when like an emperor has a wife. You know, I'm not super sold on it. You know what? Maybe she was like guiding the country from the shadows. You know what I mean? Like maybe she was ruling the country before and we just didn't know it. Like
Philip's just a puppet on the strings.
Yeah, dude. It's very possible. I mean, because maybe this is the leverage she has on him, is that he's the fan of our podcast and she's been blackmailing him. Because like if it gets revealed to anybody in Australia, he'd be ruined. That's true. Ruined. So thank you so much, Mr. Philip Renshaw, for being a patron. Congratulations for your amazing news. And let's talk about the games we've been playing. Mr. Josh, let's talk about the games we've been playing. You have been playing a game called Rogue Shift by Far-Flung Games. Tell me about it. Tell me about this game, Big Josh, please.
Are you gonna keep that voice for the entire episode?
No, honestly, it got me. Like I can only do it for like a couple minutes.
You're like,
I've been in dire need of a drink of water for like the past little while, but I was like, I can't take a pause just randomly to be like, so
that's true. That is very true. So let's dive into the games then. So Rogue Shift, because we've taken a lot of time just bantering. Rogue Shift is something that is currently in a beta form. So this is a play test. They did it for this weekend, which is the weekend of the 28th of February. And this is, I don't know if you've ever played a game called Alien Swarm or a game called Helldivers.
I played Helldivers. I love Helldivers.
Okay, so it's very similar to that in the artistic style of like the top down. You're fighting these aliens or these creatures, and you're basically on this planet being attacked by random different type of enemies, whether it be these like ant-looking creatures, these bats that are flying around and shooting at you. And you are in a very much roguelike game where you're playing the same game each time, but it is a roguelite in the fact that you're leveling up, and every time you level, you're able to pick a perk. And there's a number of different classes that you get that all have different starting stats of some sort, whether it be endurance, more speed, more damage from combat. And there's a number of different other abilities that you can power up as far as like leveling up and things that will help you, be it a attack that you have, be it a way to heal yourself, whether you're just including like increasing your stats, and then a number of different types of guns. And the guns, they're not anything crazy. It'll be something like very similar to like an AK-47 or a flamethrower or a pistol or, you know, a sniper of some sort. But the way it plays out is you're constantly moving from one area to the next, and it is almost very similar to those games that I described before, where you're just trying to survive. You're killing these enemies, you're getting stronger, you're moving from one area to the next, and you're surviving on this planet. And now the really cool thing about this game is because it's a roguelite, you are always doing the same thing, but there are 2 additional modes, which are for co-op. And so this is actually why I like it, is because you can play the co-op mode, which is more or less just an endless horde mode. It'll have you go into a room. Like there's 2 different types, but there's not much difference between the 2. There's one called Escape, which is like very similar, where you're just going from one area to the next. And then the endless wave mode is pretty much the same, because it also has you go to another spawn point in between it. So like I didn't really see a difference between the 2, but I still thought it was a lot of fun playing with people. Is you can have up to 4 people playing, and you're essentially just fighting these waves of monsters that come. You have this top-down shooting appearance. You're constantly leveling up, and you get an ability at the end of each wave, and you move from one area to the next. And depending on the type of area that you're fighting in, you might have lava, or you might have just a giant hole that you'll fall into, and like different environmental traps and things like that. It was actually a lot of fun. The one thing I will say though is this is very much in beta, like buggy as fuck. And I'm not just talking about the enemies. Like there were so many things that pissed me off. Like it was a fun game. I had an enjoyable time. I loved playing with friends, but I was like, certain things were just not optimized, whether it be just like glitching out where I fell off accidentally, because it like, you could be like this close and it's just like, you're off the edge and you just fall. And I was like, the fuck was that? And then afterwards it like has a little countdown to make sure you spawn back. And it was like countdown from 20, so that, you know, if everyone dies in your party, it's game over. But as long as one person still stands, you're good. And so it did the countdown of 20, and then it like didn't try to even put me back to the spawner, and it just, the game assumed I was still there, and it's like, oh, you fell again, and it started the timer again, and I was like, you motherfucker, what? No. And so there's things like that. There's things like, there's a little area where you purchase things. So there's this monitor that you run up to, and you open it up, and it does this little animation where the like monitor folds up, and you're then able to buy things. Anytime someone goes to it and opens it up or closes it, it opens it up or closes it for each person looking at it. So when you have 4 people trying to buy things at the same time, it's just constantly closing and opening. And I'm like, fuck, I'm just trying to buy one thing and I can't see anything.
You're like sitting there trying to buy something, your friend pops up, you're like, fuck you! Stop!
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. So there's
like
a lot of
amazing troll potential with your friends. You're just like, I'll fucking kill you right now, bro.
It was so annoying. We were like, and the way they have it is you have oxygen in the game. So you're on a timer. Like you have to keep moving. So we're like, oh, maybe we should do it just one person buys at a time. And I'm like, well, there's a fucking timer. We can't just like chill out and just like, oh, let's fucking drink some tea and just have a nice old chat in between matches. Like, so I don't know. There's certain things that obviously those can be fixed. Like it's not the end of the world. And I honestly am looking forward to this. But right now there's some things that I think definitely need to be like patched and tweaked a bit, but it has a lot of potential. And I love games like Helldivers. I wasn't into much because of the weird DDR thing. I didn't really enjoy, but like I loved Alien Swarm. I love games with that top-down style. So I think it's something for people to like keep on their radars, so to speak.
All right. I mean, the game looks really awesome. I'm assuming you're playing this in early access on Steam.
Yeah, so it was only a beta for this weekend. Like it was an open play test. You basically had to go to Steam, you would click a button to like sign up, and for this weekend specifically, you were able to play it. So after this, I don't know when it officially will go live as far as like when it's 1.0 release. So like take that with a grain of salt, obviously, of me commenting about these issues, because it's very likely that these will all be found during this beta phase. People will complain about it. It'll be patched. It'll be fixed. And then by the time it fully releases, none of these will matter, basically. But
yeah,
my point is, I still, even with the bugginess of it, enjoyed it, and am looking forward to this dropping, because this is something that I would love to, just have as another 4-person kind of co-op game.
Yeah, the game looks really, really cool. I'm into like the top-down like shooter. I liked Alien Nation. I like Dead Nation. I like Helldivers, and I think this looks really, really cool. Honestly, yeah. I would actually really like the idea of like a roguelite in that scenario, because Helldivers is it really doesn't have like a whole like massive amount of progression and stuff like that. No. It's kind of just the fun of the gameplay. It doesn't really have continually I want to say they don't continue to move the goalpost for you. It's just like, okay, complete this objective, you did it. Complete this objective, you did it. It gets a little bit more difficult, so you have to just get better at playing the game. Mm-hmm. But personally, I think the idea of a roguelite in that very same this very same vein is very, very cool.
Yeah.
But
and keep in mind, before we do move to the next one, this is a roguelite in the single-player version where you're constantly leveling up and you have those perks. Yeah, those perks. In the co-op, it is more roguelike, where every time you start up, you start from, like, 0.
Gotcha. Well, that's really cool that it actually has multiple modes that do, like, different things, though. That's really, really awesome. Yeah. Probably gives it a lot of replayability. But let's talk about the other game you're playing. You are playing a game called Fighting in Tight Spaces by Shatter. Now, would everyone be surprised to know that this is a deck-building, turn-based tactics game? Would that
Probably
blow
not.
anybody else's mind?
Probably
no?
not.
Oh, that's what I thought. Yeah, okay.
So I talked about this game in the last, not the the most recent one, but the one before Steam had a demo festival. This was one of the ones that I played in that slew of demos that I tried to go through. And so it's something that's been on my radar. It's something that I've seen and was like, this is pretty cool. Like I enjoy the way it plays out. It is very much a card game where you have starting decks, and you're then given the choice to, add a new card to your deck, to upgrade a card, to remove a card, to get other various perks and things like that. Very much Slay the Spire-esque. But the way it plays is interesting. You are essentially like a hitman. So as you're progressing, each next level is a specific area. So you get to choose based on a map. So you have a couple of different areas that you could choose from. And it'll usually be something like, this one is a restroom, this one is a bar, this one is, a warehouse, like outside in a back alley, like whatever it might be. And each of them is, you get dropped into this area that is like a grid, and it's usually like, like a 9x9 or sometimes smaller. Sometimes there's different obstacles in the way and things like a dumpster or whatever, depending on, the situation or the area that you're in. And then you have enemies that are dropped in random locations on that grid, and you're usually like in the middle or somewhere to the side. And those enemies will have their turn and you'll have your turn. And it starts with their turn where they set up into position. And it shows you how they're going to attack. Like some will have a gun and it'll be like, I'm going to shoot in this range. So anytime that there's an enemy or a character in that range where I'm shooting, whoever's first will get shot. Or there will be someone who's going to punch and they're setting up for a punch that's in this one specific square on the grid. And so your job is to normally defeat all the enemies. And what you can do, and the really cool thing about this, each card is like a movement card. It'll be like shift past someone, or it'll be like sprint up to here. And then another one will be head smash. And it'll be basically if you have an object and someone standing next to a wall or some type of bar or a table or something, you could smash their head into it. Or it'll just be a punch or a kick or something. Like those are what the cards are. It's just basic things that you would see in like an action movie, in like a Hitman type.
Yeah, it's like some John Wick ass shit.
Yeah. And it's really cool because what you do is you plan out, okay, this person's punching here, so I'm going to shift past them. I'm going to then use this card to push another character and then like also kick him or like kick him into that guy's range so that he ends up punching his friend and like doing damage to other people or pushing them outside of the range. And it's like playing with all of that. Like it's very strategic, even though it's that action oriented. Like you wouldn't think of being this John Wick character and like really thinking and planning out every single piece. It's like the behind the scenes of how that action film becomes an action film, right? So I really like the concept of that. I think it's so cool watching it play out. And the interesting thing is after you're done, you could do a replay of the entire scene based on what you did. So it'll like play kind of like an action film. If you do it well, like it'll be quick and whatnot. The other areas that they have certain modes where you'll jump in and you'll have like a person to save. And so the enemies will try to also fight them. And so you not only have to push them and fight them, you have to push the guy that you're trying to save and like get out of the way and like deal with him. So it's like another layer of just difficulty. And then they have bosses that you have to fight and all these different type of like just general, strategy game type tropes. But I really think the idea of it being this action film type scenario is just such an interesting environment to play into. I've only played a couple hours or so, but I've really enjoyed it. They do have a story mode to it that I'm going through, which has been nice. It's not just like a random like, oh, here you go, just play a bunch of random levels. It's you're doing these missions to try and take down a certain mob boss or what have you. I've enjoyed the amount that I've played, but like I've said, I've only put in a couple of hours, so I can't speak to like how well this plays for hours and hours on end. Like if this was a Slay the Spire, I played that for hundreds of hours versus this. I don't know that would keep me engaged for that long, but I still think it's worth it from what I played. And keep in mind, this is early access, so there's still things to come from this game.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. I mean, the game looks really, really cool. I like the idea of this, like, kind of controlling the flow of combat, you having to just do this precise dance around everybody. And I like the idea of you being able to, like, push people into others so that they get damaged. I mean, I cannot I cannot stress enough how much it actually bothers me when enemies are like in a boss fight or something. Like in I've been recently playing Dark Souls 2, or like in it's more prevalent in Remnant from the Ashes, but there are boss fights where you will be fighting a boss and they'll summon minions, but when the boss attacks you, they'll only hit you. They cannot do damage to their minions. Yep. And it's so fucking annoying that it's just like, why? In what reality can you not do damage to them? Unless they are just immune to fucking damage. Like, it doesn't make any sense. But I love the fact that you can actually, like, you can utilize other people's strengths against them, and I think that's really, really cool. I mean, this looks a lot like, I believe it was John Wick Hex, the game that they put out that was, like, it's obviously not a deck builder, but it was, like, a turn-based kind of strategy game, similar to, like, Hitman Go. And I thought it looked really cool. I love the art style of this. I think it looks really, really awesome. How your character is like this slick, like black suit and everything, looks very done up. And then your enemies are like bright red. I do have to ask, I've seen that there are like multiple different shades of red. Does that indicate like a health bar or anything? Like, how do you know how much damage they have left to take down or something?
Yeah, no, you can't see it in some of the trailers and whatnot, but there is a UI system where when you're actually playing into the game, there will be like right above them, it'll show how much damage they're going to do, what their attack is, how much health they have, how much shield they have, whatever. It's like a very small little indicator above each person. And it's like you hold the Alt key and it'll display everything for you. Or you just hover.
I see it now. I'm watching the trailer. I see it. Okay.
Or you just hover over the character and you'll see all that information. But that's one of the cool things about it, is like you're able to do that strategy of knowing what each person is going to do. Like, it's very much like that what was that game, Into the Breach, of like you understand exactly what's coming. So you then have that, that shuffling of cards of like, I have 5 cards that were given to me. What is the best opportunity I have to mitigate as much damage as I can and to also deal as much as I can? And it's really like, there's nothing more satisfying than pushing someone into their own groupie's bullet and just seeing them get shot and be like, haha, you dummy.
I mean, I think that's really cool. Like, the approach to combat is so much different than most games where you are the instigator of combat. You're the one who takes the first shot, versus this, and like you said, Into the Breach is much more reactionary. Right. You have to just, all of your moves are predicated on the moves of another. It's basically being like the second turn in chess. Like, your strategy has to be based on the other person instead of the other way around. And I think that's very, very interesting, and I like that quite a bit. I like the idea of always knowing what somebody is going to do, essentially, and working around that, versus having to like strategize in your own head, like, oh, I think there's a possibility the likelihood that they make these 3 moves and I don't know which one they're gonna make. Like, that's always something I have a problem with, because I have a really hard time like looking into the future, essentially, and like actually making a strategy. So I like the fact that this is like, this guy gonna punch you, do something.
Yep, that's it.
Do you also have an amount of health? I think I've seen it. Oh yeah, okay, 45 45. I saw it that time.
Yeah. Okay. So you have an amount of health, and then you have it's very much like Slay the Spire in that your health doesn't go back at the start of each one of these rounds. You have certain things like that one that I mentioned where you're saving someone. Usually that will grant you a number of health back if you're able to keep them alive in the battle. Or you can go to, there's like these healing areas, this medic area where you're able to go to like a hospital, so to speak, and you can get your health back if you need it.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. The game looks super cool. It's called Fights in Tight Places. It's by Ground Shatter. Head over, check it out. It's over on Steam. It's in early access. Currently patrons will hear this at the time, but it's like 10% off right now to get in. I think it's like $22, something like that currently.
And also a thing to note, I don't remember if we said it, but I did get this copy for free through a publisher. So once again, take that with a grain of salt. Just to remember that I didn't pay for this, but I would recommend it if you like card games, that is.
Because Big Joshua, he likes some card games.
They're awful.
So, for me, I mean, technically, I didn't write anything in the doc for what I've been playing this week, mostly because, like, I played some more Shattered, Tale of the Forgotten King. I didn't get much further. I mostly just wanted to test out a few things. Like I really wanted to know if the like what the big changes were with combat and like the different weapons that you use. And it's mostly just like they don't really have any changes when it comes to the combo types. It's almost entirely just based on the amount of damage you do, the speed of an attack, and the amount of stamina that is consumed by making an attack. So it kind of like I'm gonna continue playing. I wasn't immediately off put by it, but also I've said this on a couple different things, but I felt like kind of overwhelmed a little bit recently, so I decided that I needed something to like chill with, and I've been playing Remnant from the Ashes again. Been playing a little bit more of that. I went back, I'm playing it on hard mode. I'm actually seeing a lot of things that I haven't seen before in the game, which I think is a lot of fun. But yeah, that's mostly what I've been playing. Not many of the indie games. So, but next week I'll be back. I'll be playing more like Children of Morta. I'll play some indie games. Don't you worry, be Josh boy. I'll play some. Don't you worry. So let's hop into our main news story since I got nothing more to talk about. Our first news story over on IGN. It is written by Matt Purslow, and we're not going to read the entire news story, obviously, because it's something that's been unfolding over several weeks. But if you didn't know, people like Valheim. They really like it, and it's like a big game right now. Yeah.
I haven't heard anything about it. Tell me.
Right? It's not like every fucking ad I see is about Valheim. Nope, not even a little bit. Like I've seen so many fucking Valheim ads.
I've mentioned it on the podcast before, but I have a couple of buddies who play it, and they're just like, they're so addicted to it. It is ridiculous. There was a time, so every Saturday I have a group of friends who we call it like basically like our nerd morning, where we wake up early on Saturday and we play games because we generally don't have a lot of time to do normal things because we're adults and life sucks and whatnot. But every Saturday in the morning, that's the time where we all get together and we'll like play games. And so one of the times we got on and like we kind of split into two different groups, and like two people ended up just playing Valheim, and the three other ones were just playing a different game. And so we started
playing
like
Gunfire Reborn. You don't need to lie.
We were playing For the King. Relax. But that's not unheard of. I definitely play a lot of Gunfire. But so we start at like 9:30 in the morning, and around noon or 1 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I had to leave, and I left and I did a bunch of stuff, and I came back later on at nighttime. It was like 11 or like 10 at night. I came back on. Those two people were still fucking playing. They just did not quit. And I was like, how did you guys like stop at any point? And they were like, yeah, we had lunch. I was like, Jesus, that's so much. But
that's crazy.
I mean, they love it though. And it's one of those things where I'm like, I'm kicking myself because I'm like, I hate survival games a lot, but I feel like if I would have got into it, I probably would have been just as addicted and like really like gung-ho with them. But I'm like, I don't have time for this either. But it's one of those like those FOMO things where you're like, damn, apparently this is a really good game. Should I play this? I don't know.
I mean, I'm into survival craft games. I think they're really good. It was just like I don't know if I will be able to sink in as much time as I would like to. So specifically,
that's
Chase
the concern.
Yeah, exactly. Like Chase really wants me to buy Valheim. Like I think it was on my Sunday stream or maybe on my Saturday stream where he was literally just in the chat trying to get people to play Valheim with him. He really, really wants to play this game, and he was like trying to convince me to buy it. And I was like, I would totally be into buying it. I know that it's probably going to go up in price once it gets to like 1.0 release because of how fucking popular this game is. It's like $20 right now. It's not a huge ask. And I was like, I want to buy it, but I don't know when I will ever have the time to sink as much time as I would actually like into this game, let alone the fact that, like, I don't know if we necessarily reported it because just every fucking, I swear, there's 6 million articles about Valheim. This time I just decided to do it because I thought it was like I thought it was a big, like, checkpoint. It was a really cool occasion for an indie game to meet this kind of a height of concurrent players on Steam, which I'll talk about in just a second in the news article. But overall, I've seen so many fucking articles about Valheim. It's fucking outrageous. It's literally like when Fall Guys first came out and every other article is about fucking Fall Guys. I was like, stop. I refuse to talk about this just because of the ridiculous amount of information that you're putting out. But there was one thing, like, the developers were urging people to make backups of their worlds because if you did a certain thing, it would eat your world. It would, like, destroy it. And I was like, what the fuck? And I thought that was
it's out. It's a beta.
It's
right
in early
now.
access. Yeah. It's everything has to be taken with a grain of salt. The game looks really cool. It seems awesome. I'm more than likely gonna eventually just buckle under the weight of Chase and his like demands to play Valheim and probably get it because it looks really fucking
that, Chase?
cool.
He's already thinking about buckling. You should push harder
dude.
now.
He is. He's gonna hear this and just be like,
He's like, this is my fucking chance.
But here's the thing, like every time I buy, the funniest thing is like I will buy a game so we can all play together, or like all of us will buy a game, we'll play together for a day. Never again. We all bought GTFO so we could play together.
Oh, yeah.
Haven't played it since.
Man.
Actually, no, that's not true. I played it a little bit more after, but I haven't played it a whole lot since then. When I tried to play by myself and I was like, this is impossible.
Yeah,
this
that sounds rough.
Legitimately impossible. But to the news article. So, like I said, Valheim doing real well. People like it. People think it's a cool game. Valheim has now surpassed Terraria's all-time high of concurrent players with 502,397 players at peak on February 21st. Oof. This means it has a record high most concurrent players of a survival game on Steam. I like how they do have to add the caveat of a survival game on Steam.
Well, yeah.
Makes sense. It definitely makes sense. Especially because esports make, like, fucking Counter-Strike Global Offensive pretty fucking gigantic, and Dota. But continues to go on and says, at the time it hit that, it was the second most played game on Steam behind just Counter-Strike Global Offensive. This means Valheim now has the fifth highest peak concurrent players of any game on Steam behind PUBG, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, Dota 2, and Cyberpunk 2077. Holy shit. Like, I mean, it's just crazy to think that an indie game is, like, shooting all the way up to these heights. I mean, I guess there is, like, some caveats. Like, you could have considered, like, PUBG technically. I mean, you'd still... I don't know. Depending on your definition, if it's real loose, you could still consider it like an indie game. But when it initially released, just Brennan Green working on like PUBG, it could, as like an Arma 2 mod, I think it was, it could be considered an indie game, but not really anymore. So it's not unheard of for indie games to do exceptionally well. Like literally brought up in the article, Terraria did very well, but Valheim is just breaking records left and right. And this game only came out less than a month ago, or like a month ago. It's fucking blowing shit up. It's crazy.
I don't even know. Like, one, there's not much to say about this other than congratulations. Like, hot damn. That's phenomenal. Like, it is very impressive what they were able to accomplish. And also it's fairly impressive because from what I've heard, this is such a great game, like, which is obviously the reason why we're seeing such a high amount of people who are going to this and flocking to this game. But like, I listened to the way my buddies are talking about it and how they're playing it, and they're like, there's so much we haven't done in this game yet. And I heard it on like the GameSpot After Dark. I think it was Jacob was talking about it, and he was mentioning, he was like, yeah, there was like only one little blip of the map that he had looked at, and it was the same from my friends. And I'm like, man, my friends have put in so much time to this game already. It's already at like 100 hours for them of just them like sinking time into this, and they're still like, yeah, there's like 1,000 more hours for me to see. And I'm just like, this is still early access? Like, God.
Yeah.
Damn.
Imagine how fucking huge it's going to be when it's content complete. And like, you also have to take that into account that apparently it has an exceptionally small file size and no one knows how. Like, everyone's like, I think it's like less than a couple gigs and it has that much content. It's fucking outrageous.
That's pretty
Like,
crazy.
yeah, it's Valheim just seems like a fucking stroke of genius in a sense. Like it's weird. Ultimately, I mean, to be fair, it does look a little bit janky. But that is like it's a game in early access. It's lacking polish, but I guarantee by the time it gets to like 1.0 release, shit's gonna be popping. Like
Right.
this is, I'm so glad that people are recognizing it and they think it's amazing. It seems awesome. I would totally jump into it if I could guarantee that I would have the time to play, but I can't. So, and I know that I would want to sink so much time into that game. So we're just going to chill and instead talk about GDC. So over on GameSpot, our next article is written by Eddie McCook. And it is GDC is changing things up for 2021 due to COVID-19. I know Eddie needs to stop covering indie game related shit because like I just get his name wrong every time.
I'm gonna reach out to this guy and I'm just gonna we need to talk. Can I get the way you phonetically say your name spelled out so that I can give this to Vaughn? Or just get like an audio file. Can you say your name in an audio file and just send it to us? So every time
we like,
just play
I
it.
just insert it. Don't even have to try anymore. So this is GDC changing things up for 2021 due to COVID-19. Due to the ongoing impact of COVID-19. Okay, I'm not actually going to read most of this. Like, it's unnecessary. We all fucking know. We know that, like, conventions are in, like, some sort of a stranglehold because of COVID-19. We really can't go out. Yeah. I think it's funny that this is such a, like... Eddie, you squeezed this fucking orange dry. I don't know how you got so much of an article out of this because it was just like, we're thinking we have to change. Like, there are many unknowns when it comes to this. And I'm like, in what way? Like, in what way is this more complex than any other? Like, than any other convention that has been done online? Like, PAX has already done it. I don't see how this is so much more complicated because they're basically just going to do the same thing. They're just going to do it online and they're just, it's like, it's going to be like, okay, you're in a Zoom meeting and you just make everyone, like, you mute all their mics so you can talk for an hour and then you unmute their mic. Like, it's not that fucking complicated. I imagine it's going to be really cool. I love the amount of creativity that people have put in, like how much ingenuity has gone in to people kind of trying to combat the limitations of COVID-19 with still wanting to get the word out about their games. Mm-hmm. Like similar to like the, I believe it was like the Devolverland Expo where they put out that and it was like basically what they would have had at convention, but instead it was a video game. And there's something, so cool. There's an indie game showcase. I forget what it's called, but it's coming up and it's doing the exact same thing. And I think that's amazing. I think it's incredibly creative and it's really, really awesome. But I almost guarantee that GDC is not going to be like this fucking stroke of creative genius that they're trying to make it out to be in this article. And I'm not shitting on it at all. Well, actually, that's not true. I am, but I don't mean it in like a mean way. I'm just like, I mean, yeah, it would be cool if you were creative, but let's be honest, you're not going to make a Devolverland thing. It's just not going to happen. But instead, you're just going to do what everyone else has done with this. So, whatever. But for the schedule itself, GDC Masterclass, March 4th through the 5th. This will consist of 1 and 2 day virtual workshops that will deliver in-depth hands-on training around some of the most important challenges facing game developers today. According to Stern, GDC has recruited some of the sharpest minds in gaming for these classes. GDC Showcase, which takes place from March 15th to the 19th. This is a free all-digital event that will include spotlight lectures, AMAs, and interactive panels with developers. That's really dope. Then you've got GDC 2021, which will take place from July 19th to the 23rd. This is the traditional GDC experience, running for a week, but it will be virtually this year instead of taking place at its normal home in San Francisco. We did consider an in-person component this year, but we have decided it's more important that our speakers and attendees speakers, attendees, and sponsors be able to plan ahead to continue to be safe as possible and to spend our attention on delivering the best possible GDC, Stern said. The Independent Game Festival and Game Developer Choice Awards will take place on July 21st. This is the annual award show that celebrates the games of the past year. It will be streamed via the official GDC Twitch channel. And then they have more, which Stern said the team is planning more GDC branded events for the second half of 2021, and this will be announced later. I would love to be wrong and this not to be basically like a pseudo Zoom meeting, but I'm almost guaranteeing you that's exactly what it's going to be. Big Josh Boy, are you excited that how do you feel about the changes, and do you think that this is going to continue after like COVID-19 has kind of like gone away in a sense when people get vaccinated? Do you think that they still might actually include a virtual component so people don't have to continue to come to the United States?
I think for sure that's going to be something that they consider. The reason why, what's interesting from it being a game developers conference or a conference that's based on things that you are actually doing on a computer, right? Like the fact that for these workshops or these things where you can literally have someone and have them in their own environment and what they're comfortable with, and be able to say like, we're going to go through these exercises and we're going to teach you how to do XYZ, and to have people just follow along at their own pace inside their home is 100% something that people would probably appreciate more, because yes, they have the distractions of your normal home life, which sucks and whatnot. But what's cool about this is that you literally get to figure that out in your own environment where it makes more sense, rather than you going to a conference, trying something out and then coming back and not knowing how to do it again, right? It's like you're in your own little bubble that makes more sense. I think it is very fitting for the specific environment of it being about developing and being about computers and things like that. I think that they'll probably go to that more in person, like that week-long thing, which is that GDC 2021, eventually going back to like, we're still going to have that in-person event, because people are just going to want to be with each other. Like the networking of it and that camaraderie of getting all of those the developer individuals in one room and able to talk to each other, able to, express the different stories. Like there is a difference, right? Like we know there is a difference. It's why people are going like stir crazy right now, because all we have are Zoom meetings.
Yeah, and we've also experienced this kind of like stuff online before. Like essentially going to E3 gives you the same experience as watching E3 on video, but everyone that I know that wants to be in the games industry wants to go to E3 just because there's a different air about it. It just feels different physically being there and witnessing fucking Keanu Reeves walk on stage or something than watching it in a video. So yeah, I totally understand the need, or at least the kind of presumed need of a physical portion of a conference.
Yeah. So I think the way they're doing it right now kind of makes sense, and you look to 2022 hopefully, and you say that portion of it will probably be in person, right? Fingers crossed. Will be in person next year, and that'll be that thing, but they'll also have these other pieces. What I think is interesting is like, at least in my mind, GDC was always just that week-long thing, right? Like, I don't remember them having, like, the way they have this mapped out is they have different things in different parts of the year, right? They have some in March, they have some in July, which I remember it only being, like, that week-long in like, the latter half of the year. So I think it's interesting that they're kind of breaking that apart and almost making it makes sense to have certain things set up for virtual, certain for in-person, so that down the road in later years, like it's easy for them to transition into that. But I might be wrong, and I just might be dumb and don't know the schedule. I'm not a developer, so like GDC for my end has never been something that I'm like crazy into, because there's a lot of stuff from a technical standpoint that I'm just, it's over my head. But that being said, I mean, I think, they have the right setup. I like where their head is at with this, and I hope it all goes well. I'm in the same mind as yours, that although I think from a developer conference that like these are the people who can do the really cool shit, who can make it something interesting and that more, interactive experience. But I'm sure it's going to be very much a webinar, very much a conference, and have people talking. Like, I don't think it's going to be this crazy, like, you know, VR type, you know, walk into a room, but from a virtual standpoint sort of thing. But like, those things could be done, right? Like, that could be a thing. And boy, would it make sense at a developers conference to showcase it. But like, I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, mostly the reason that I believe it's going to be a pseudo webinar is just that's the easy. It's kind of like how when developers make a game, they base their system requirements off of if it's coming to consoles. So they build it so it can run on the weakest shit. And then they optimize it for other stuff. I believe the same exact idea is going to work for this conference and others, is that you want to make sure that anybody can
watch it and participate. Yeah, for sure.
It would be cool to like do it in VR, but there aren't enough people with VR headsets. So instead, you make it this webinar. You make it to where a massive amount of people can come. They don't have to have this niche piece of headgear, and instead you have like what would be considered a boilerplate, like boring convention, but you still have all of the cool stuff that you would have before. You still get to talk about the technology versus like, if you don't know what GDC is, essentially like how E3 is a celebration and announcements based on what I would say is like the art of video games. GDC is a celebration and announcement towards the making of video games, or the art of making video games, and how exactly it all goes together. And then you also get additional talks like diversity in the industry. Like they get pretty heavy at GDC, and it's very interesting. It's much more of the inside baseball of conventions. I would love to go to one.
Right? It's E3 is very much the hype reel. It's like, oh, what's the big new game? And like this one is more of like, what's the big new mechanic, or not mechanic, but like the way that we can create the new game, right? Like how do we get to there? So it's not as much like, you're not going to watch this GDC and be like, I hope they show the next God of War. Like, that's not what this is about, right? Like, this is going to be like, this is the new way that we can start working on the new God of War and make it easier for everyone who wants to do something like it. You know, like that's what you would see.
Yeah, during GDC, they do typically, like, from what I understand, not obviously like Josh and I've never been a part of a conference. We would love to, but we don't even know if it'll ever happen
I'm feeling so upset by all these posts. I made a post about it on Twitter today because I'm just like, every fucking person is like, oh, went to PAX, had a great time. Oh, we didn't get it. And I'm like, bitch, I never been to a PAX.
I might never go to a PAX.
I might never go.
Sucks.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it does blow. Yeah. But I from what I understand, having never been to any of them, there is like, you can play games and stuff at GDC. Like there is like a certain section of it where I've heard people in the industry talk about how they went and played a demo during GDC and all sorts of stuff. They saw some game stuff, but it's much more about the industry and the art of making video games than it is about showing off video games to like the average gamer kind of a deal. Like, it's, when I say inside baseball, I mean like really inside baseball. Like, this is like the Moneyball type shit of baseball in this analogy versus literally just like watching kind of a deal. So I think it's awesome. I'm excited to see what comes out of GDC because they always have like really interesting discussions. I typically very much enjoy, like, I mean, Rami Ismail has been somebody who's talked to GDC several times, and he's brought up like some pretty, I mean, each time I've at least seen him make headlines for the things he's done at GDC, it has been interesting. Like, I believe last year or the year before, I can't remember exactly, but he essentially, at least I vaguely remember him doing a survey based on where people were, like where they were actually located while being in the games industry. And there were a lot more people developing video games in countries that I had no idea that they would have been doing so, because it's typically, when you think about developing them, you think of like basically Japan and America. And like sometimes you think of like other places. Obviously Europe is a big deal as well, but there's all sorts of interesting discussions to be had at GDC, and I'm excited to hear them. But let's talk about something that is not interesting in a sense, but I'm okay. Yeah, you get it, big boy. So this one is over on The Gamer. It's written by Vaspan Dastrur. I butchered
Pretty sure you
your
butchered
fucking name.
that. Yeah, pretty sure you
But
butchered that.
I'm gonna be cool. I'm gonna be honest though. You got a cool name. You got a cool name, Vespan. You got a dope name. But this is Terraria launch on Google Stadia would proceed after confrontations with Google. Relogic's founder Andrew Spinks had earlier announced that the studio would cease development of the game cease development for the Google Stadia version of Terraria after a public confrontation with Google. However, in its latest post on the game's forums, the studio has announced that it will reverse this decision and that the development of the Stadia version will go ahead as planned. As you may have noticed, we had a ton of issues to kick off the year stemming from a locking down of Redigit's entire Google account in early January, says the post. After a month of pushing and with the immense support of our fans, Google finally reached out and was able to provide a lot of transparency around the situation and to restore access to all of our accounts. Due to the hard work that the Stadia team has put in, as well as our parents, or our partners, not parents, I just read that wrong. Partners
Thanks,
at
Mom and
505
Dad.
Games. Our partners at 505 Games, we have decided that we will allow the upcoming launch Terraria on Google Stadia to proceed. The Terraria Stadia build is based on the DR Studio 1.4.0.5 latest build and is currently at Google for certification review. I do like some of the wording in this where, I mean, obviously they're backstepping what they said before. What they said before was much more like intense. They were just like, it was kind of like a fuck Google, we're not making games for you anymore.
Never again.
But yeah, now they're just like, you know what? We'll let you have our game. That's the level of their relationship. They're not excited to be working with Google again or anything like that. They're just like, we will let the Terraria Google Stadia port proceed for now. Kind of a deal. So how do you feel about this, Big Josh Boy? Did you read into this the way I did?
It's a good point. I didn't read into it too much because this just feels like of course this would have happened. Like, are you kidding me? Like, you think they're just not gonna do it? Like, seems dumb in a lot of ways, but like the threat was really just a look, assholes, like, do this and then we'll put it up there, basically. And that's what they got, right? Like, that's the thing that's interesting to me is they say that it was resolved. And in there, I forget where it was said, but they were like, they congratulate them for something about transparency. Okay. Yeah. Google finally reached out and was able to provide a lot of transparency around the situation to restore access to all of our accounts. What was that transparency? What was wrong with that account? That's what I want to know is what did they do wrong? Because that's a pretty big screw up for just no one to talk about it and then be like, all right, here's all the information of why you're screwing around. But they didn't talk about that, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, because they basically entirely took away their account and then they were just like, here you go.
Like, what?
At least that's what
do?
we're being led to believe, is that they were just like, you know what? They were cool about it. They gave us back our shit, so we decided that we would grace them with our presence, kind of a deal. And
I don't understand what that situation. Just like, you can't have your account, and they were like, but why? And they were like, JK, it's cool. And you're like, the hell? Like, this is not how you're supposed to operate.
It could also be said that even though Terraria is really old, like, it is still a big brand. Like, it was brought up in that Valheim story for a reason. So it is possible that Google was just like, oh, it's going to cost us money. Like, obviously, like, maybe it was actually just a bug. It was a problem. Like, this shit happens all the time where even big names have issues with Google or their like parentage of like companies they own, like YouTube and stuff like that. And
just tell us. The people want to know.
Yeah. It seems like they do very much like cater to the like really big people and then just shit on the tiny people. Yeah. But there is a very distinct like possibility that this was just a problem and they realized that this was going to cost them money just for a stupid problem. Yeah. So they were just like, no, we're sorry. Like, here's your Google account. But yeah, the idea of like transparency almost makes it seem like there was something wrong. Yeah. You're just like,
that's why I'm like, I want to know what that means. That's a very specific word to use.
Yeah.
That.
I guess we are both reading into this in a weird way, just in different ways.
Yeah. That's just different parts catching our eyes. I think it's very much like, I think all of these articles have been very much like not nothing articles, but just like very much, I don't know how much I have to say personally about this, because this seemed like one of those, like, it was gonna happen. Like, Google wasn't just gonna let it go. And what could he have possibly done to that account? Like, I want to know what is wrong with this account. But I'm glad for the people who get to play it, because I think Terraria is a great game. I don't know a lot of people who have Stadia, but if you do, like, get it. It's great.
All right. Now it's time for us to hop into News Cram. News Cram is our weekly wrap-up segment where the hosts of IndiePod and Indie Games Podcast cram you full of all sorts of indie game news. This week, we have a couple news stories for you, a couple quick ones, a couple quick little babies, some new deals, some quick steals, and some new stuff. So, our first quick news story for today comes by way of IGN, where it's reported that indies are sweeping the gaming awards. I said that on purpose in that way. The world's first LGBTQ video game award show. Most notably, Hades managed to snag yet another Game of the Year award. It found winning both the Best LGBTQ Indie Game Award and Best LGBTQ Narrative Award. And basically every award that was cited in this article was specifically an indie game for the most part, from what I saw. I mean, it kind of depends on if you consider, I believe, If Found an indie game, or not If Found, Tell Me Why, an indie game, because it's like it's made by an indie studio, Don't Nod, that now has investments from Tencent, but that game was published by Microsoft or Windows, like Microsoft Studios. Like, it just depends on what you think, but I mainly didn't put this in the main news stories just because this is the inaugural. This is the first of the gaming awards, so I kind of is just like, okay, I don't know what kind of precedent they set. I don't know how, like, if these indie games actually beat out others or if this was specifically for indie games, but if they beat out others, it's kind of amazing that every game that won was an indie game, because they're seemingly the few that actually want to talk about like LGBTQ stuff.
I don't think it's unheard of at all, because of that very fact of, like, from an LGBTQ standpoint, like, indie games are going to be the only ones who are taking that risk to tell their stories, right? Like, a lot of the time. The
only reason I think that it might be only classified with indie games is because The Last of Us 2 isn't on there. So it's like, I found that kind of weird. So it is possible that they mainly just picked from like an indie stage, but I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I think the awards were also presented by EA. That doesn't really have a whole lot to do with it, but
It's weird.
I think it's awesome in general that there's like an LGBTQ video game award show. I think that's cool. I mean, if they are just mainly focusing on indie games, I think that's fucking dope just in general. Like, highlight more indie games. Let's fucking do it. Highlight the fact that indie games often like go out on a limb and talk about make stories like If Found. Like, it's really awesome. I'm glad. But now we're over on the Gamer, where it's reported that Cram, developers of the popular monster taming MMO Temtem, have decided to push back several of the game's content updates listed in their initial roadmap due to the said roadmap being outdated, and move forward without a concrete roadmap to ensure that they create the, and this is in quotes, highest quality content possible. So that's cool. I mean, I'm all for it. Just take your time making your game if you want to. I'm all about the, like, when Odin says my fucking game is done, it's done. Yeah. Like, I'm chill with that. So
COVID's tough.
Take your time.
Screws up plans. Yes,
it does. Now we're going to talk about some new deals and quick steals. First deal, or I guess our first and only deal of this week, comes by way of GameSpot, where it's reported that there's a sweet sale over on the PlayStation Store that discounts a number of indie games, including games like Cuphead, Ashen, Dead Cells, and The Messenger, and of course there's much more. But the sale will only last until March 11th. This is actually an indie-specific sale. It is only on indie games, so that's pretty exciting. I believe The Witness is typically $40 and it's like $10. on this sale. So if you're a fan of puzzle games, at least pick up The Witness. But there is like a bunch of games on sale right now. Like Ashen's got a pretty deep sale. I think it's normally $40. It's on like, I think it's like $18. The Messenger is like 10 on there, I believe, as well. So make sure if you're a PlayStation gamer and you want to play some indie games and some good ones at that, head over before March 11th and pick some up. Now on to some new stuff. Our first 9 items in new stuff come by way of Nintendo Life. Yeah, Nintendo Life coming back with a vengeance. They had like 4 last week and the week before, something like that, but now they're back with 9.
Hot damn, Liam Doolin.
It's probably a lot of them are by Liam Doolin too. Where it's reported that survival horror game Tormented Souls by Dual Effect and Abstract Digital is headed to PC via Steam and the Nintendo Switch sometime in 2021. That roguelike deck builder Nero Deck by Tavrok Games is headed to PC via Steam and the Nintendo Switch on March 18th. I actually think you'd really like this, Josh. It's a like psychological horror game, but a deck builder. Looks really interesting. That puzzle game Wind Peaks by Actun Studio is headed to the Nintendo Switch on March 3rd. That arena shooter Boomerang, I was going to say boxing game, I'm going to be honest. That's what I was going to say.
Close enough.
I don't know how that happened, but whatever. Boomerang X by Die is headed to the Nintendo Switch and PC via Steam sometime this spring. That first-person psychological horror game In Sound Mind by We Create Stuff is headed to Nintendo Switch and PC via Steam sometime this year. That narrative-driven action-adventure game Foreclosed by Antab Studio is headed to the Nintendo Switch and PC via Steam sometime this summer. That action platformer Horned Knight by I want to say Joseph, but it might be Josep. I'm not exactly sure, so I'm going to go with Josep or something like that. So, Josep Manzanes Hernandez is available now on PC via Steam and the Nintendo Switch. That 3D platformer Mail Mole by Talpa Games and Uncoders is headed to the Nintendo Switch and PC via Steam on March 4th. And lastly, that first-person action game Kill It With Fire by Casey Denellen Games LLC is headed to Nintendo Switch on March 4th. Now over on Polygon, where it is reported that Slowclap, developers of the online multiplayer combat game Absolver, have just announced a new true-to-combat kung fu game that's in quotes, I believe that's from their press release, titled Sifu, which, not seafood by the way, just thought I'd put that out. It's Sifu, S-I-F-U. Like, I believe that's like teacher in a language. I don't know what.
I like it. You're like,
I don't want to go out on a limb here.
Yeah,
I don't want to go out on a limb here and say that I believe it's like Mandarin or something, but it's Sifu. Okay, it's not seafood, it's Sifu. Which will be releasing on PlayStation 4, or PlayStations 4 and 5, and PC via the Epic Games Store sometime this fall. Now over on Twinfinite, where it's reported that open world survival craft game Subnautica Below Zero by Unknown Worlds Entertainment is officially getting a 1.0 release on both PlayStations 4 and 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, Nintendo Switch, and PC via both the Epic Games Store and Steam on May 14th. It also has some physical editions coming out that are like day and date, but I'm not exactly sure what consoles those were on, so I just pretty much talked about it coming to the consoles themselves.
Good enough.
And that Soul... I'm just like thrown off right now.
That is quite a title.
And that Souls-like action RPG Mortal Shell by Cold Symmetry is getting a PlayStation 5 port that will offer better performance and visuals and will be releasing on March 4th. You know what's interesting? Sometimes I write out PlayStation 5 or 4, but then other times I'm like, I don't want to type it, so I'll just put PS5. But almost no matter what, I say PlayStation 5. Even if it's PS5, I will say PlayStation 5.
It's probably a good habit to have, to be honest.
Yeah. More than likely. Now over on IGN, where it's reported that sci-fi survival craft game Breathe Edge and it's like breathe but with edge on the end of it, but all the same, it's all squished together. Very weird, very weird. By Red Ruin Softworks is now available on, oh my God, what is happening? I mean, this threw me off when I read it too the first time just to make sure it was good, but then I fucked myself again and I didn't change it. is not only available on PC via Steam right now, but is also heading to Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and the PlayStation 4 on April 6th. That a new Stardew Valley board game is in the works. It can be played by up to 4 players and costs $55 and is available now. Obviously, the two things, like it being in the works and being available now, two different things. But when I first started writing it, I was under the assumption that it was not actually made, and then I'm still not exactly sure if when you purchase it, they'll just send you the copy. It's also sold out, by the way. Like it was almost immediately sold out from what I understand. So that seems pretty cool.
Are you gonna pick it up when you can? Because you can't have that bad pickaxe animation. No, this is the way you can get into it.
That's a fair point.
Come on, man. You know you want
parched. No, not even a little bit. I just don't even, at this point, it's like, I gotta keep going. It's like your Epic Game Store thing. I just I gotta run this bit into the ground. It's not gonna happen.
I get it.
I'll never play this fucking game. That Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout has announced its new season titled Fall Guys 4041. Yeah, no concrete details were given, with the exception of the addition of both Cuphead and Mugman, not Mugmen. That would be weird. Mugman skins, which are seemingly available now. On the article, it said that they were coming out this week, but the article was written earlier last week. So I was like, by the time anybody hears this, it should be out. You should be able to get like Mugman and Cuphead skins. So yeah, it's probably
available. Go get them.
And that Sandbox Life Simulator, Roots of Paka by Soda Den, is headed to the Nintendo Switch and PC via Steam sometime in 2022, with PlayStation 4 and Xbox One releases coming at a later date. Also, if you'd like to get some extra goodies, make sure to head over to the game's Kickstarter, because it is currently on Kickstarter. I think as the time of this recording, it has like 24 days left to go. And over on The Gamer, where it's reported that psychological horror puzzle game Mundawn, not Mundane, by the way, it's Mundawn, I believe, unless I don't know how to say Mundane. I'm pretty sure it's Mundawn. By Hidden Fields is headed to PC via both Steam and the Epic Game Store, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S on March 16th, with the Nintendo Switch version of the game coming this April. And to round out the group, over on GameSpot, it is reported that story-driven action-adventure game Kenna, not exactly sure, I think it's meant to be Kenna Bridge of Spirits by Ember Lab is headed to both the PlayStations 4 and 5, as well as PC via the Epic Game Store on August 24th. That's my birthday! That's my birthday! Yeah!
Look at you.
Yeah!
Happy birthday.
I'll be 26 when that game comes out. Won't that be exciting?
You're so young.
Nah, I think I'll be 26. I'm pretty sure I'll be 26. I don't know.
To be young and dumb again.
To not be counting the years. You're just like, I only have 5 more years left until I die.
Yeah, I've already died.
I mean, if you're counting the averages, yeah, it's possible. It's very possible. Now, over on Kickstarter, because of course, we have been blessed with so many amazing indie game news stories that it's time for us to get back to the creators in our next segment. God bless the crowd. This is where the biggest Ravage Josh boys find some awesome game sorts to talk about, and we do just so. We are over on Kickstarter, and we're going to be talking about a game called Lucid Soul, a villain protagonist high fantasy horror JRPG with turn-based combat in a retro-inspired style. That's a lot. That's a lot of descriptive details for this fucking game.
It's a lot. But now you know what it is.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, honestly, I didn't know what it was before this. I'm going to be straight up real with you. The developers were looking for $50,000 at the time of this recording. They have $27,948 with 231 backers and 19 days left to go. The developers are, I believe his name is just John Bookout, but I'm not exactly sure. That's the person who created the thing on Kickstarter. And to get in on the ground floor and actually get the game, you got to spend a whopping $20 to get a copy of Lucid Soul. But Big Josh boy, tell me what you're thinking. What do you think about Lucid Soul?
So I'm sure that you are going to do this, but they got to shorten that fucking trailer.
Dude, it's 12 minutes.
It's 12 minutes. That is the first thing. It's really cool though. Like, granted, I love the animation style to it. I love the theme around it and like the way they're portraying everything. This is very much you're playing the game from the evil villain's point of view, which I think is cool. And I love that it is a adult themed kind of much more darker side of things. You play as this ragtag bunch of individuals who are affected by this thing called, like, I think it was dragon blood or something like that. It's basically something that corrupts you as a person, and it kind of takes over your body and turns you into these more demonic type of individuals. And I really like the art style to a lot of the characters. The actual game play art style is very much more pixel based, kind of something I would equate to like the SNES or like NES style.
Yeah,
maybe like a Game
they say
Boy
it's
style.
influenced by Lunar Silver Star, the Eternal Blue, Final Fantasy, Chrono Trigger, and Silent Hill. Obviously, Silent Hill is the odd one out there, but it's very much like Chrono Trigger.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the Chrono Trigger one is the thing that I look to the most, where I'm like, yeah, it looks very much on par with that, which I'm excited about because a lot of the games that they're pulling inspiration from are things that are all great. Like, there's definitely a lot of good that can come from using those as your template. I think the humor to it is a bit on the nose, but is still good. Like, I like the fact that they're doing this more adult theme, as long as they don't get too hard into the idea of like I've talked about this before. Like, there's certain games where when you just constantly swear or you constantly use stuff to be like edgy, I tend to not gravitate towards those just because I don't think they're good. I think it's lazy in a lot of ways. But I didn't get that. I didn't get that feeling with this. I got more of a like, they're kind of teetering on that line of staying clear of that. I think that the combat system is interesting because there's a lot of like, they didn't show it too well. And I think that's what they could have done really better with this Kickstarter is like, they showed a lot of interesting flashy things and trying to build this narrative, but they didn't just really hone in on like, what is gameplay? And they created this whole immaculate story, and this character is talking to you. And there's like, if you piece together, you can kind of feel for like the intricacies of, it has a complex system where you're fighting certain enemies, and because they're brain dead, certain types of, because you're fighting zombies, and it's like, because they're zombies, they can't be affected by mind attacks, like things that are mental state, because they have no mind.
Specifically,
right?
It brought up fear.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. And like, I think that's really cool. I think having those type of systems in place will bring about something that creates a lot of fun style to it. But man, it is just not expressed very well, because it becomes that whole story that you have to really get invested to. And like, I hope that doesn't become a detriment to them, because I feel like someone who's just looking out at this from, an outsider perspective of just taking a quick second to see if like, does this work for me? Yes or no. Most of the times they're probably going to say no, because it's like, it takes a long time to get into it.
Yeah, I would say the easiest way to talk about this Kickstarter is to say they do way too much telling you what the game is, and they never show it. Yeah. Very rarely do they show it. Literally, when they start, they've got 12 minutes of alpha footage, and I literally, like, I sat there, I watched through the entire thing, and I was like, where's the combat?
Yeah.
What does this game actually look like?
They have a whole section, a big like 4 minutes of that, which is like talking about boss fights. They never show you fighting that boss. They show you who that boss is, and they say that it could probably one shot you. So you have to be strategic about how you play, but they never show the actual part of it. And I was like, that's cool. Like, I get it. Like, there's potential there, but like, come on, show something of those characters fighting against it, which is the main crux to this. Is very much a Kickstarter where you look at it and you have to believe in it, because if you don't, there's nothing here for me personally from a gameplay perspective where I'm like, yes, I will enjoy that. Do I think that the characters, the story, the environment is all interesting? 100%. But is that enough for me to throw $20 to them? I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like coming into this, like, honestly, watching the trailer, and until I read that little blurb at the beginning, a villain protagonist, I had no idea who you play as.
Yeah.
I was like, who the fuck are you? Like, I didn't understand, because it does, like, the beginning of the trailer, I really, really love. I think the animation is awesome. The entire idea of it, I guess the way it approaches comedy, I thought was great. It's got a bunch of thick waifus. I'm into it. But also when you get to the end of it, nice. I was just like, but what is it? Like, who the fuck do I play in this game? Like, I just didn't know. And it turns out, like, I was so mind-boggled by who you play as, the fact that I got down to the part where it describes the characters, and it says one of them is main character. I was like, but are they? Are they your main character? Because I don't know.
Yeah, and I've never seen them in it, like, which is really weird.
They showed it for like 5 seconds. It's so weird. And the last thing I want to say about it is just there's too much tell. And I mean that in the game itself. Like, there was so much fucking dialogue. I was like, stop talking. Why are you talking so much? Just shut up. Like, because I know for a fact if I was playing through this game and that happened, I would just turn it off. I'd be like, or I would just fucking click that button like 6 million times.
Were you showing us what you were doing for the waifus or clicking the button?
Both. Yeah, both. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you just got to get that like fucking, you know what I
mean? Yeah. Both are working that out. I will say I love the art style of the character design for, what is it? Sinella, the one with its nipples are mouths. It's so disgusting. I think it is the fucking grossest character, but I think it's so funny looking.
Yeah, I should say that's the only one that I wasn't like, whoo-wee. I mean, the other one's got like a fucking Kraken face, and I was still into it, but that one I was like...
Yeah, and they did it so perfectly, because they're like, here's this real hot babe, and next coming up, and you're like, whoa.
Like, yeah, and it just like eats the camera, basically.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool. I think the idea of you being the villain protagonist is really, really awesome. Yeah. Like, I've always thought that was really awesome ever since Nefarious. Just the idea of playing as a villain and getting to see everything from the opposite point of view is really, really cool. But also, I feel like this game just... I mean, not the game. The Kickstarter itself, the game's Kickstarter, just doesn't do a good enough job of actually telling you that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, there's a lot in this game, or in this Kickstarter, where I'm looking at it and I don't see what pieces equal up to which part of the game or what does what in this. It's like,
yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of potential in it, and that's kind of why I'm upset with the way the Kickstarter was handled for that, just because I feel like this should be such an easy purchase for me.
Yeah.
But I don't know enough, and I don't know what this is going to become, and it's kind of that thing that's holding me back. But
I mean, one thing I think is really, really cool that they didn't talk about in the trailer, they didn't showcase it at all, but the fact that you can essentially like take over villages and then leave them to some of your different like companions, and they kind of like take it over in a different way, where they will, like, one of the characters, she's like kind of like this Spider Queen-esque character, and if you leave a village to her, she covers it in spider webs, and there's people like tangled in spider webs, and there's spiders everywhere. Like, I think that's really cool, and if it actually changed based on the different characters that you left, like the way that they treat the land that you tell them to supervise, I think that's really cool. That sounds really, really awesome. I just don't know if I could get through all the dialogue to actually get to that moment, honestly, because it's too much. The chat overlays look really cool, though. That's always something I enjoy, and the fact that one of the Kickstarter tiers is that you can get them to draw you an NSFW version of one of their characters.
I knew you were going to bring that up.
What? Yeah, I was just like, nah, okay, it's cool. I mean, I didn't find the tier, how much that would cost me, but,
I mean, is it worth it?
About to invest some money on these waifus, dude.
These waifus. Oh my goodness.
I'm gonna get that one, like the really creepy looking one. I'm gonna get that one. I'm just like trying to dissuade suspicion right now, but I'm like,
just like what can I do to just get the picture. Like, I don't want the game, but I just
yeah, exactly. I'm just like, how much money do I got to pay you just to do the NSFW stuff? Like, is it a lot? Is it a lot? Like, that's all I want. But that
my goodness.
is the end of this Kickstarter section. Unless you have anything else to say about the game.
No, I think it looks really cool. I think, like I said, there's a lot of potential for this. I hope that they make it because I personally want to see what it becomes, and I'd like to hopefully, purchase it, pick it up one day in the future. But this is one where I don't know enough about it yet, and I kind of feel like it might not be for me. But there's probably a lot of people out there who will look at this and be like, yeah, I gotta have it. So check it out.
Yeah. Definitely. So once again, this is Lucid Soul, the game. It is over on Kickstarter. They have 19 days left to go. Obviously, by the time you listen to this, that's going to be less because we don't put this out until like 2 days after we record. But please, if you are a fan of like old school retro RPGs, specifically like Chrono Trigger and stuff like that, the early Final Fantasy games, check it out. It looks interesting and it's got thick waifus, which I'm a big fan of. Now, it's time for us to hop in to our audience questions, and I'm going to be honest, Chase is going to listen to this. Chase, hop in and out of fucking Grand Theft Auto one more fucking time, dude. I swear to God. You know how
on Steam,
like
the little like notifications,
the little pop-up when
yeah.
your friend keeps playing a game, it keeps throwing me off where I keep looking and I'm like, what is that? What is that? And it's always just him playing fucking Grand Theft Auto. Damn. What are you doing? Why are you exiting and entering the game so much?
He's cheating.
God damn it. But on to our actual audience questions. Now that we're, I've gone through a little fucking tantrum there.
Yeah, that was
Phil,
a bit.
The Wombat Emperor of Australia, writes in and says, and
I'm so excited for this. I can't wait because specifically you have to read it.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that. So Phil writes in and says, and this is going to be a long one. It's going to take a while for us to get through this.
Yeah.
So I'm doing something a little different this week. I'm going to post some Aussie slang here, and I want to see how the boys go at decoding it. I'll also send what I said in an actual I love that you said what I said in actual English to the anybody. He's like, I know it's weird, but he's like, I'll translate this bullshit for you.
What's really funny, I read this to my wife before the podcast because I was just telling her about the questions, and I read it out and we were kind of decoding it, and then at the end she goes, does he even speak regular English though? I was just like, damn.
I mean, I don't know if unless Phil, like, if Phil never actually told us that they were like Australian, or like we never heard their voice.
I wouldn't have known.
Yeah, I never would have known. Like, Phil, you got the English, so I don't understand why you got to resort to this bullshit. Like, honestly.
Oh my God, that's not the way to say that.
So I said in actual English to the IndiePod email. So after they had an attempt on the air, they could read the email and I find out what in the fudge I was actually talking about. Just to let you know, I do not believe Josh or I have actually read this email. I almost accidentally did the other day, but then I was like, oh no. When I realized the subject was like, do not open this until after you try to read it. Yeah. So I believe this is one. I mean, I feel like maybe this is all like one gigantic thing, but instead I'm just going to read it and we'll see if we can get it. Okay. So, good day from down under. I feel like that one's pretty obvious. It's just like,
hello from
It's like,
Australia.
sup, dude, from Australia. Yeah, kind of a deal. What the fuck?
I know. This one was probably one of the weirdest ones for me.
This can't be real. This can't be a real thing that people say. I don't believe it. So Phil writes in and says, stoned the flaming crows. I've been flat out like a lizard drinking this week, and I really should have chucked a sickie.
So clearly saying, I don't know what the first part is. I have no clue, but clearly saying basically he's been on like a bender and
I think it might be like, fuck me.
Yeah, has drank so much that he should have threw up. But stone the flaming crows, I'm like, What is it? I mean, is that just like a wazza in fucking Aussie language? Like, I don't know.
I think it's like a fuck me thing. I think it was just like, oh, fuck my life. I got so drunk over this weekend. I should have thrown up, but I didn't. Like, he should have booted and rallied, but he didn't. Right. I believe that's what Phil is trying to say there. But
that makes sense.
I see, this shit is so weird that I'm so excited to find out what it actually means. I'm just like, what the hell? Okay. Sometimes I think life would be easier being a dull bludger, and that's fair dinkum. That can't be a word. That can't be a word you use. That's literally...
Dinkum is the guy on Doug.
What is this? Oh my god. So
Dink.
so what do you think that means? Something I think would be easier. Sometimes I think it would be easier being a dull bludger, and that's fair, dinkum.
Maybe a dull bludger is some kind of... fuck, I don't even know. Because at first I thought of like just a dunce. Like a dumb person kind of a thing. But I was like, why would that make him better at drinking? Or maybe he's getting drunk because like life is tough, but maybe it's like an ignorance is bliss thing. Like he wouldn't have to drink if he was just a dum-dum and just going through life or whatever. I don't fucking know.
I mean, I guess like maybe a dull bludger is like a hardcore alcoholic that like doesn't have a job or anything.
Yeah, like a junkie.
Yeah, I don't know. But what the fuck is fair dinkum, dude? What is that?
I mean, it's fair dinkum.
Oh my god. Anyways, how is my fave Bluey going?
I feel like it's a weird, because he's clearly talking about you, if for the context of like the second half. So I feel like maybe that's a weird slur for gingers. Maybe, I don't know.
No, he told me that's Ranga. Apparently, is like the slur for gingers in Australia, which I thought was hilarious. And then he was like, we're going to take it back. And I was just like, I don't think you can take that back, dude. A ginger has to do that. And he's like, nope, taking it back.
All right. Yeah, I don't know. Because he's talking about you, because then he goes into that part where he says, still shit house
at games, I'm guessing. So I'm assuming that's just like still just fucking suck at games,
Yeah, you suck at games.
Yeah, okay. And me mate, Josh, you seem... little a bit of a larkin.
Like a bit of a larkin.
Like a bit of a larkin.
I assume this is like, because he then goes to say, I bet in your younger days you were a real root rat. And I feel like he's calling me like a hoodlum or like a troublemaker, which he wouldn't be wrong. But I have no idea what that larkin is.
I don't know either. I don't understand. Like, I wonder if like people like him listening to this podcast, like if you and I like spoke, like, I don't know, I guess if he listened to me and Chase or like me and Avery, like my friends talk, if it would sound anywhere near as weird as this does.
Probably.
Like,
I mean,
I would like to know.
Well, because this is going hard, right? Like I'm sure he wouldn't go this hard even in general. Like this is just using all of those interesting idioms and like weird sayings. Like there's a bunch of those that kind of we just take for granted now. Like take it with a grain of salt. Like what the fuck does that mean? Like if you really think about it, like we use that all the time on this podcast. Anytime we talk about getting a code for free from a developer, but like in other, languages or regions, they're probably like, why are they putting salt on their video games? Like,
I mean, even weirder is the saying, don't look a gift horse in the mouth.
Yes.
And that's like a really weird thing.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, when you look into it, the saying actually makes a lot of sense. It's like when somebody gives you something.
Yeah.
It specifically comes from like if somebody gave you a horse, you don't check its teeth to see if it was healthy. That's looking a gift horse in the mouth. But
right. But that context is not there. It's why, like, specifically, like, I have a job where I write a lot of content that will end up getting translated. And so the biggest thing about my job is never using any of those type of sayings because it does not translate well.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So goes on to say, you fellas should totes come to Straya sometime and we can get on the piss together.
Get drunk together.
Before smashing out a Maka's run.
No idea what I feel like are.
The piss together, yeah, I got that. You get like piss drunk kind of a deal. I got that. But what the fuck is Macas?
Is Macas? Is that another type of alcohol?
Honestly, I almost think it's like, I think it's a video game. I really think it is. I think it's like not a game called Macas, but like it's like how people say Smash.
Yeah.
Like instead of Super Smash Brothers kind of a deal. So maybe that's the thing. I don't know. It'll be a rip snorter of a time.
I love that. What a weird fucking word. Like,
I feel like that has to do with cocaine, dude. Like you do a rip, you just do a line.
Yeah,
like,
dude.
I mean, it seems like that's
Haven't
where
we
that
all
comes
been
from.
there?
Anyway, I'm off to chat to my Sheila. Hooroo, you galls. You gal.
I love that. I have no idea. This part gets just like very much garbled for me.
Okay, so to read that in its entirety, I'll read it the entire way through just so it makes a little bit more sense because I broke it apart just to see, because I don't get it. So this is what Phil says. Good day from down under. Stone the flamin' crows. I've been flat out like a lizard drinking this week. I really should have chucked a sickie. Sometimes I think I like how me trying to read it is actually fucking it up even more because I can't read. Sometimes I think life would be easier being a dull bludger, and that's fair, dinkum. Anyways, what? How's my fave Bluey going? Still shithouse at games, I'm guessing. And me mate, Josh, you seem like a larkin. I bet in your younger days, you were a real root rat. You fellas should totes come to Stadia sometime and we'll get on the piss together before smashing out a Macca's run. It'll be a rip snorter of a time. Anyway, I'm off to chat with my Sheila. Woohoo, my girls!
I'm reading it now. This is so funny, dude. Some of these, like the first half, we were just so fucking off on.
Really? Okay,
yeah,
so
dude, it's hilarious.
This is what Philip Runshaw, the Wombat Emperor of Australia, actually meant by what he wrote. So he says, "Hello from Australia. Can you believe it?"
That's what that crows part means.
No.
Can you believe it? Is Stone the Flaming Crows.
I've been so incredibly busy this week. I really should have faked being sick so I could have taken a day off work. Sometimes I think life would be easier living off unemployment benefits, and that's the truth.
Dinkum
so
is truth.
I guess we got like I guess we got
no.
Well, I guess
no.
I don't think
so
that
off. No, come on.
No. What I was saying, like the dinkum thing, he says that's the truth, dinkum. So I feel like dinkum is like not actually truth. That might just be like a way to end a sentence or something. But no, I was talking about how the like a Larkin thing, or no, it was the dull bludger or whatever.
Dull bludger.
Yeah. We thought that, like, I thought it might be like an alcoholic essentially because we're just running off of it, but it's like living off of unemployment benefits.
Yeah, so it's basically like a mooch, I guess.
Okay. Anyway, how is my favorite redhead going? You actually got it. A Bluey is apparently a redhead. Okay.
Which is weird because
it's terrible
blue,
at video games, I'm guessing. Yeah, that is weird.
Should be a ready.
The blue thing is weird. And my friend Josh, you seem like a cheeky kind of a guy. I like how he still made it weird.
Yeah.
You seem like a cheeky kind of a guy. I bet you're a real ladies' man back in your younger days.
Also not wrong.
A root rat is a ladies' man.
Weird, right?
What?
Weird.
Guys, you should really come to Australia sometime and we can drink some beers, get drunk, and then go to McDonald's.
That's a Macca's run, baby!
What? What the fuck? I guess it's I don't know. Maybe that was like a thing in his like friend group. It's kind of like how fucking
like, I
the
say
guys
Mickey
over
D's.
at Active Quest. Yeah, I say Mickey D's too. The guys over at fucking Active Quest call it Mackle Dudes.
Mackle Dudes.
So, it'll be a great time. Anyway, I'm off to chat with my woman. See you later, you fools. Is what he actually said.
That's so good. That's so good, dude.
I don't believe that's real. I just can't believe it. That shit is so weird.
My favorite really is Stone the Flaming Crows. Like, what the heck?
Yeah. What the fuck? Okay. Moving on. Chris Penwell writes in and says, "How have you been, you beautiful bastards? Do you share geeky interests with your significant others?" So, Josh, how have you been, and do you share any sort of like your nerddom with your wife?
I've been good. I mean, very much the same thing. Stuck in a pandemic, but I'm good.
Checks out.
Yeah. I honestly, not too much. My wife and I have very different interests with a lot of the stuff we do, to be honest, but she is very into beer, which I love. It's kind of a great part about it. And she is always up for trying a new board game, which is really where I get into like making her play different things, whatever it might be. She's not like a gamer per se, but I can get her to play like the new 3D Mario game. Like I started playing through all of that with her, so like I can get her into games, but it's usually like a Mario or whatever. Like it's very much the popular ones, right?
Yeah, didn't you play like the new Luigi's Mansion with her?
No. Well, I guess I
thought you said you played a little bit with her.
Yeah, a little bit. I didn't play through like the full part, but I had her playing, and like she enjoyed like Animal Crossing and stuff like that, so we played that for a bit. But like she generally isn't into it too much, so I wouldn't say we have the relationship where we're like we both love games and like it's not that. Like it's very much like we do our own things, and then we come together and we'll like enjoy each other's company when we do, but it's not like we're constantly on the same thing. But geeky interests, we both got into WandaVision, so there's that, I guess.
Okay. All right. So for me, how have you been, you beautiful bastards? Dude, I talk about how I am every week, pretty unfiltered on the episode. Last week talked about how I'm 100% certain that I have IBS.
Yep.
And like fucking,
we're back.
I don't know. Yeah, shit. I mean, shit doesn't suck. Shit is actually pretty good. Like trying to get a house, but just keep getting dunked on by people who have more money than me. That's super fun.
Get fucked.
Yeah, just felt a little overwhelmed, had a little bit of anxiety recently, but it's all good. It's getting a little bit better, trying to calm down a bit, play some games and stuff, trying to take things a little bit easy with my wife. So we'll just I think like last week for a little bit, I just laid in bed with her for a while. That's nice. I haven't done that in a really long time. So we just laid there and I enjoyed the morning with her. So that was pretty nice. Do you share any geeky interest with her? Do I? No. Not even a little bit. Like the only games that Morgan has really ever played was like she played Ripto's Rage, she played some Spyro, and she played a small amount of Animal Crossing until she realized that the timer was real, and that and she wanted to be so honest with it so that she wouldn't time skip.
Yeah.
So the time that she could play the game was not when shops would ever be open, and that totally like she didn't want to play Animal Crossing anymore.
Yeah. No. That was a dumb idea.
Yeah, Morgan is like a murderino. She's like the typical white girl. She loves wine, and she's a big fan of true crime shit. Like, I'm not even joking. She's watched every fucking Aaron Hernandez documentary that exists 65 million times. I walked in there this morning. She was watching another one, and I was like, how?
You're going to die, dude. She's going to kill you.
I think so. We often joke about how she's going to murder me.
Yeah, she's definitely going to kill you.
I get it. Which is kind of funny because every time I do something, like we also joke about how people probably think like I'm abusive in some sense, which sounds actually really bad. But no, like we'll be walking through the grocery store and she'll like be like, "Can I get this? Would that be okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why does it matter? Like, of course you can."
Yeah.
And we like joke about how it probably seems like I'm sort of like some sort of fucking domineering person, but it's just like that's the way she is in a sense.
Yeah, she just wants to make sure as like a couple like making decisions. Like that's totally fine.
From the outside, like if somebody saw us in a grocery store or something, they would probably think that like if one was to murder the other, they probably think it would be me. But guarantee you, if I show up dead and I was strangled at the very least, she did it.
It's always the nice ones.
100% she did it. Like when she gets drunk and you piss her off in any sense, she immediately goes for this. She tries to get you. Like, not talking about a forced choke. She like tries to choke you. And I think it's funny, hot. Honestly, but it's not going to be funny when she eventually collapses my windpipe. So,
well, hey man, don't knock it till you tried it, I guess.
I know, right? Right? Yeah. Good point.
A lot of people like
Chase writes in and says, "Why do anime have 25-minute episodes that have 10 minutes of recap, intro and outro. So I've talked about this with Chase a couple times, but I was gonna argue against this and say it's not that bad. But in all fairness, the intro is typically like a minute and a half. The outro is typically a minute to a minute and a half, and there is a lot of recap. So I think, while I think 10 minutes is a little bit like of an exaggeration, guaranteed I would say it's about 5, 6, under 8 minutes of all this shit. I don't know why they do it. I think it's annoying too. I hate how every fucking episode they treat you like you're a dumbass. I've often talked about on Go Beyond how annoying it is that every season of My Hero Academia, they do a beginning of the season filler episode where they just it's a recap episode, and then at the middle of the season they do it again. And I'm like, why do you got to do it?
Because
like, I've been watching the whole time.
Costs less.
Yeah, I've talked to I brought it up to Chris. As like, I think actually he might have brought it up to me, but we've talked about it. It's like, you wonder if they think Americans are dumbasses. And they're just like, we're gonna need to tell them what's been happening in the story.
Yeah. No, man, it's just to make it so they have more episodes than content.
Yeah, and it can pad out episodes like pretty easily. I mean,
keep
filler episodes very specifically. Like Naruto has so much filler because the anime was catching up with the manga, and they were trying to like change that. But yeah, there's some shit just gets egregious. It's pretty fucking crazy.
Yeah, I agree. Anime sucks.
Chase is watching Attack on Titan right now.
Oh, Attack on Titan is good.
Yeah, he was hopping in my my Twitch chat last night being like, why didn't you tell me Attack on Titan was so fucking good and crazy? And I was just like, I feel like I have before, but like, yeah it is. It's 100%.
I'm not an anime guy, but Attack on Titan is definitely one you gotta watch.
Yeah, and he specifically said, like, we were talking about, of course, just, we're dumb boys. We were talking about attractive female characters in anime, you know, the waifus. And I was talking about how Mikasa is, like, very attractive. And then he was like, and her hot, dead mom, though. And I was just like, what? Why did you put it that way?
Yeah, well. I mean, I feel like you could have left out the dead part, but if that's what gets you going, I suppose.
But it's the comedic value of you being like, her dead mom, though, is pretty hot.
Something about a stiff body.
That's a good point. So, that's not a good point, actually. I just feel like I should say that right now. That was a joke. So, we'll see is our last listener question for the day. Writes in and says, are you guys judgmental over the type of video games some people play? If I ask somebody if they play
apparently
games...
everyone hates card games over here. Judgmental fucks.
If I ask somebody if they play games and they reply with Apex, Fortnite, and PUBG, I immediately think to myself what I went through at middle school. We used to get swirlies and trash canned and monkey in the middle with our Game Boys. Next time you rip your vape, I love this like Kyle persona of a gamer that fucking Will's got. Next time you rip your vape and get that next headshot, think about your wounded gaming veterans. So do I judge people? I mean, once again, Will C is pointing out my theory that the only reason the gatekeeping exists is because people were dicks about it before.
Yeah.
And like they were made fun of it when they were younger for like enjoying it when they were younger. So now they're like, you can't like video games because you were a dick to me about it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, eventually we just got to let it all go. I mean, video games are becoming so popular that I feel like eventually a generation will never be made fun of for it. They'll be made fun of for something else. Gatekeeping will always exist for that very reason. But because bullying for some reason is always going to exist and it kind of blows. But like eventually there will be a generation that will not be made fun of for playing video games or like watching anime and stuff like that. And after we all die, after all of us dinosaurs fucking die and people are playing in full dive VR, nobody will give a fuck. They won't judge what kind of video games you play. It's not going to be a problem. But Big Josh Boy, do you personally judge people for the kind of games they play?
No. I mean, I think that, you know, that you have those stereotypes in mind of certain people who play certain games, but like if that's your genre or that's your choice, like more power to you. Like I don't care. Like it's one of those things where there's a lot of genres that I don't care for. Like I don't care for sports. I don't care for like management sims. I don't care for survival in a lot of cases. But like if you're into it, like fine, play whatever you fucking want. Like I don't care. Like I generally am a person who's not very judgmental in just any regards. So I think that's probably why I don't care as much. But like if you're not in my main circle of people that I interact with, which is very small because I don't have a lot of friends and I don't have any intention of gaining more, then like fucking just leave me alone.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I intentionally judge people for the games they play, but I can't necessarily say that I don't.
I mean, there's always I don't like unbiased, like you always have those, like that's kind of why I mentioned like you have those stereotypes in your mind of like that person who only plays the sports games, right? Like there's people like that, but like, you know, that's fine. Like you're not trying to actively attack them, right? But
yeah. And I mean, interesting enough, like Will talks about specific things seemingly in his childhood, like swirlies, getting trash can, monkey in the middle with your Game Boy, which for people who don't know what that is, they essentially took his Game Boy and threw it to each other while he was trying to get it back from them, which I'm saying Scroll Punch gets you out of it every time. Just saying. Fucking twist their balls, bruh. But, I never had any of this stuff because I essentially did not, I basically hid the fact that I played video games and enjoyed anime and shit when I was younger. I just like hid it all the time. That's why, like, I don't know. I feel like I'm so weird about it now, and that's probably why I have so much shit, like so many toys, and I'm so obsessed with like customizing the things I own. Like my wife is always like, why do you have to buy 65 million stickers when you get a laptop? And I'm like, so people know the games I like. Yeah. That's why. So people know the things I like. And it's just an overcorrection for what I did when I was a kid, which was just hide it. I didn't bring my Game Boy to school. I didn't talk about video games in school. I didn't talk about comics. I didn't talk about TV. I didn't do any of that. Instead, I was just a piece of shit because I wanted people to like me. And I really regret it. I actually really hate that I was that way. And I wish I would have been more myself in school because I think I would have actually had a lot more friends. At least I would say long-lasting friends. Because the friends I made, I didn't actually have anything in common with. And the people I know outside of school that I think are fucking awesome are the kids that like I made fun of when I was there. And it's so fucked up. And I'm like, I wish I was your friend. I wish I wasn't a piece of shit to you.
Kids are terrible. Kids are terrible. That is 100% the moral of the story. 100%. Yeah, I had a lucky childhood when it comes to this kind of stuff because for my elementary school years, I had close friends in there that they were all just like me and loved video games and stuff like that. So I didn't really care. And also in elementary school, it just felt a little bit different, I guess, for me. And maybe my school was more cracked down on that kind of shit. Middle school, I was picked on for being fat, so it really like didn't matter. Like that's what they were gonna make fun of me, not because I was a gamer, but because I was a big chunky boy. And then in high school, I went to a really small high school. It was only like 100 people in our class, so like super small. It was a vocational, vocational / high school kind of deal, and so like you had these cliques that just it was like the 10 people there, and it just like it didn't really matter because it was like what are the other 10 like group of 10 people. They all had their own like area. It wasn't really like the jocks anywhere. So it's just like I was fortunate, and that's probably why I don't care, right? That's probably why there are people who have that gatekeeping mentality who have been through that struggle. But like for me, I was one of the lucky few who didn't go through that. So it's like for me, I'm just like, no, just don't be a dick. Like whatever, you know, like it's fine. But I can see how some people could get upset and be like, no, you don't get to experience this now.
Yeah, so there you go. I don't think we do it on purpose, at least anymore, but I should say, I'm a very judgmental person, by the way. Like you said you're not, I totally am. Yeah. I would like to put on some sort of facade that I'm not. Actually, there was an instance where somebody constantly told me not to judge them, where I was just like, it's interesting. Every time you say it is the only times that I'm actually not judging you.
Oh, okay.
Like it's never like when I was actually judging them that this person would be like, don't judge me. It was always when I wasn't even thinking about it. I was like not doing anything. But in moments when I was hardcore judging them, they never brought it up. Yeah. It was so weird. So yeah, I'm a super judgmental person about like everything, honestly. I don't know why that is. Once again, I'm just like a piece of shit. But yeah, it's something I'm all about. But the games that people play, not really. I don't care that much about it. Like if you play games on your phone, that's awesome. Like just the fact that people enjoy them is pretty amazing to me. I think it's awesome. And I'm a person who loves to talk and I want to talk to people about things. So the more people who enjoy things, whether that's like Apex Legends or Madden or shit like that, like I don't care. Like I'll talk to you about it. I don't play them, but I enjoy talking to people about it because of their passion for it. I think it's really awesome. Like when people talk about the metas in Apex Legends, I don't understand it, but I love to hear about it because it's so interesting and you can just feel how much they love it. And I think that's awesome. I think it's fantastic.
Yep,
so
I agree.
There you go. Hopefully that answered your question, Will. Sorry that you got bullied by people like me.
Yeah,
so I'm sorry.
Vaughn, you're the worst.
Just a piece of shit, dude. Just a fucking piece of shit. So there you go. Thanks everyone so much for listening. If you would like to chat with us outside the show, you can do so in a bunch of different ways. You can hit us up at IndiePod on Twitter for the podcast specific channel. Of course, that's where you get like notifications of our episodes going live, which makes it really easy. But of course, we post these every, Friday and Wednesday for the developer interviews. We also pop up for the new deals and quick steals that you cannot get, or at least will not get if you listen to it and you're a plebe on the Fridays. Or, of course, all of the indie developer news that we post on there. Always trying to retweet when indie developers are doing awesome shit. So make sure to follow us at IndiePod. You can follow me, specifically Vaughn, at Hyde Legion, HYDELEGION. I Twitch stream on Saturdays and Sundays with, I'm playing Dark Souls 2 currently, shooting through some Souls-likes, doing that, having a lot of fun, chatting with a lot of fun people. Bringing up the Twitch streams, I said that I was going to bring this up on this week's episode. We are not going to be doing the Twitch streams. For a while, we're postponing them, mostly because of my school schedule, but also Josh is going to be doing some contract work, so he needs a bit more time. So we're both just pushing it back to sometime when we have more time, kind of a deal. Yeah, it's just going to be like that for a little while, but of course we'll still be putting out all the standard content. But speaking of the big Josh boy, you can follow him over on Twitter at @the_Jorsh90, and you could check out his Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/the_Jorsh, which I don't know when he streams anymore. He doesn't really do it that much anymore. He doesn't pop on there no more.
I don't know. I'll get to it eventually.
I like streaming. I think it's really fun. It's basically just like hanging out with a friend as I eat shit at video games.
I mean,
it's fun.
I really liked it. It's one of those things where if I wanted to do it again, I do it sporadically, but I feel like I need a schedule so people know when to show up. Because you have days where it is really fun when you have a group of a couple of people, and then you also have the days where no one really shows up, and you're just it just feels really silent, more than usual if you're playing a game with no one watching. Yeah,
it is a little bit weird. It is a bit weird, but that is the end of this episode. Thanks everyone so much for listening. Of course, make sure to check out our Nakul Them developer interview for In My Shadow going up this Wednesday, one day before, or one day after for patrons, 2 days before for plebes. Check out the IndiePod store over on Teespring for our t-shirts and stickers. Check out the IndiePod YouTube channel. It's just IndiePod over on YouTube for these videos, or for these episodes on video. Make sure you check it out over there. Leave us reviews on any sort of listening platform, specifically iTunes, because it supposedly helps us out. And lastly, thank you so much to all of our amazing patrons, the aforementioned Will C, Mixamatoxis, aka Mix, Zach Durham, Chase Hopkins, Philip Renshaw, the Wombat Emperor of Australia, Chris Penwell, always drinking tea, Josh Nichols, aka Active Josh, and lastly, Mr. Sam Fillion from Canada. Thank you all so much for being patrons. Thank you all so much for being amazing. And for everyone, we'll see you all next week.